Hey everyone, this video is going to highlight the clinical experience, what the clinical sites expect of you and what you should be expecting of the clinical sites. So we're just going to run through the PowerPoint. I'm going to show you how to sign up for clinicals, what you need to turn in prior to signing up for clinicals and things like that. Okay, believe it or not, back in the day we used to have an ambulance. We used to serve 1 mile radius, the 1 mile radius around the UIC campus. It was awesome. Maybe we can get back to that one day. So the prereqs, which I believe the majority of you have already submitted, I need your immunization records. Please email them to me. I don't want them in person. So I need hepatitis B, measles, mumps, rubella, or MMR, varicella, Tdap, as well as a recent TB test, which you can get at your doctor's office or a minute clinic. It has to be within 6 months of the first day of class. And after I receive all these things, I'm going to send you a Google Excel file, and it looks like this, a Google Excel file which you can sign up. And so if you look at the very top, it says the location as well as the shift time. So Northwestern ED, 1530 to 2330. Northwestern ED, 0730 to 1530. Northwestern ED, 2330 to 730. So these are all military time, okay? UIC ED, 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. And then Lifeline in Skokie, 4 a.m. to 4 p.m. And if you scroll to the right, you have different locations. There's Lifeline in Chicago, there's MedX, there's Superior Ambulance, there's ATI Ambulance, and then there's Elite in various locations. Gurnee, Orland, Hickory Hills, Naperville, Schiller Park, so on and so forth. And so I will open this up to you after I receive your immunization records and TB test results. So your objectives for completing these clinical experiences are to hone the knowledge and skills that we've been learning in class out on real patients. And, you know, every one of us probably have the skills to talk to each other, to talk to another human being. But it's another skill to be able to talk to someone who's experiencing what could be the worst day of their life. Okay, so you're going to develop some confidence and bedside manner. And you're going to see how the skills that you've been practicing in class are utilized in both settings, the ER as well as the ambulance setting. And you're going to experience an EMS position firsthand. You're going to be working with an ER tech, which is a potential opportunity you can utilize after you obtain your EMT license. And by the end of it, and throughout it, you're going to be evaluated by your preceptor, which is typically an ER tech or a paramedic or an EMT. And then lastly, you're going to learn the tips of the trade. Just don't pick up any bad habits too early, okay? But you will learn tips of the trade. And, you know, overall, after these main objectives are done, I want you to think about where you want to be maybe 5-10 years down the line, and what do you need to obtain, what could you obtain from those experiences for what you want to achieve 5 to 10 years down the line. So if you need to shadow a PA, a nurse, a physician, those are all objectives outside of this. But because you're in the ER, not many people have that privilege, that opportunity to be in the ER. So after you complete the objectives for the class, if you want to hit any of those, it doesn't hurt to say hello to a future healthcare provider that might have what you are seeking. All right. So the two locations that we provide ERs for are Northwestern Memorial, which is downtown in the River North neighborhood, and then UIH, or UIC's hospital, which is down the block from where we're going to have class. So it's on the west side of campus. Each location, you have to do both once. Each clinical is going to be 8 hours long, which is a typical shift for any healthcare provider. You're going to interview and assess the patients. And that being said, all your information, because you're going to have to write some patient care reports, all the information that you're obtaining is coming directly from either the patient or your preceptor. At no point throughout the clinical should you be hopping on a computer and digging through the patient's EMR or electronic medical records. If some of the things that you're helping out with are outside of the EMT's scope of practice. You're going to be witnessing those interventions. And you can be assisting the ED staff, pretty much the nursing staff, with what they need, whether that's cleaning a patient, turning a room over, obtaining vital signs, moving a patient, transporting a patient to X-ray, CT, MRI, another ICU, whatever it is, you're going to be there to assist them. Okay, so these are the addresses. I'm going to have a clinical note sheet for all this stuff as well in my Brady lab. So the address for Northwestern is 251 East Huron, and UIC is 1740 West Taylor. The main thing, though, is you have to walk in through ambulatory entrance. Do not walk in through where the ambulances roll their patient through. And for the most part, you can't, because they do have a password, a passcode you need to punch in to get in anyway. So walk in where all the patients walk in, check in with security, tell them that you're here to do, you're a UIC EMT student and you're here to do a clinical with the ER, and then they're going to direct you to the ER. When you're in the ER, you're going to look for the charge nurse. The charge nurse is the nurse that's in charge for that shift, and they assign which patients and which rooms get designated to which nursing staff and ER techs and things like that. So find the charge nurse, introduce yourself again, tell them you need a preceptor. And then this last part right here, be patient if shift change is in progress. Sometimes you arrive and what shift change is, it's handing off a report from your current shift to the next shift. And so that might take 15, 20 minutes. They might tell you to go wait somewhere, maybe in the break room. But if it's been 30, 35 minutes and no one has come and get you, they honestly probably forgot about you. So you have to go back out there, find the charge nurse, tell them you haven't found a preceptor yet, and then they'll find one for you. Don't wait hours, hour and a half, 2 hours into your clinical to email me, which I might not even see in time, to tell me that no one has come and get me. I'm going to leave my clinical. All right. No one's going to hand you anything. No one's going to hold your hand through this. Expect no one to hold your hand through this. So you have to go after it yourself. All right. Here's a map of Northwestern, and here's a map of UIC. With ride time, like we went over in the clinical sign-up sheet, the locations that we offer, the ambulance companies that we work with, are Lifeline, MedX, Elite, ATI, Superior, or any fire department of your choosing. I do discourage, we don't have a partnership with Chicago Fire Department, but if you are coming from the suburbs, 9 out of 10 times that suburban fire department, especially after you walk in, introduce yourself, say that you're a current EMT student and you're looking for an opportunity to ride along with them, 9 out of 10 times they'll be happy to have you on. And your ride-alongs must be at least 16 hours over 2 shifts. So that being said, you can work 24 hours at a fire department, and sometimes you might not see a single call. So that's why we want you guys to spread it out over 2 shifts. With this, you're going to be an active member of that EMS team, maybe like a third member. Okay, it's going to be a little more of an intimate setting than the ER. The ER might seem chaotic if you've never been in the ER, but it's a well-oiled machine. The ambulance, it's tight-knit. There's either 2 EMTs or medics, or 1 medic, 1 EMT. There's a pair in each ambulance, and you have 1 patient at a time, and you're assessing and treating that patient from beginning to end until you deliver that patient to the ER. Whereas in the ER, you might pop in and that patient might be in the middle, of their stay at the ER. So it's a little more of an intimate setting. And by the end of the class, you'll be able to reflect and see which ones you like and preferred. But pretty much the same objectives. You're going to be interviewing and assessing these patients and completing the patient care reports. Your preceptors will either be EMTs or paramedics. And if you do live in a suburban fire department area or a suburb, you should be reaching out to them, typically in person. If you don't have your uniform, get your uniform, and then reach out to them in person and request to ride along with them. If they need a letter stating that you're a current EMT student, either Marty or myself is more than happy to write that for you. So all the paperwork, we need to write paperwork for every clinical. 3 patient care reports per clinical. And we're going to have pictures of each of them as well. So all paperwork can be found in my Brady lab. Here we are at my Brady Lab. So this is your class currently, the UIC Spring 21 EMT training class. You click on it. And then on this left side, it says Course Home. I want you to click on Course Home. And under that, Communication Tools, click on Communication Tools. And then under that, if I wanted to send a class the whole email, this is how I would do it. I would click email, and then it would shoot an email to all you guys. But go under document sharing. Under document sharing, you can find all of our lectures as well as note sheets and practice exams as well, okay? But at the very top, there's a folder called Clinical and Ride-Along Paperwork. I want you to click on that folder, and then it's going to open all these documents, 4 documents. I'm going to put the PowerPoint in here as well. But clinical sites, clinical site notes. So this has all the phone numbers, addresses of all the clinical sites. And then this is the 3 different pieces of paperwork that you need, which we're going to go over right now. So you need these sheets of paperwork prior to going to that clinical. So you need to print them and bring them. 3 patient care reports, or PCRs, must be filled out completely for each rotation, and your preceptor needs to sign the paperwork. So this is the first one. It's called Clinical Evaluation. At the top half, your name, the date, where you're at. I'm at Northwestern, I'm at MEDEX, I'm at Superior, I'm at ATI, I'm at UIC. Who's your preceptor? The time you were in and out, and then the age, sex, and chief complaint or general impression of your patient. So let's say we had a 45-year-old male complaining of chest pain. We had a 88-year-old female complaining of stroke-like symptoms, so things like that. Lower half of the first page is where your preceptor is going to start evaluating you. So they just read the chart, the scale, and then they fill in the numbers accordingly to your appearance, your attendance, how prepared were you, are you dependable, are you organized, what's your attitude, and then on the back side of that page, it continues. And then on the bottom, they need that signature. You need that signature, okay? If it's not signed, it's not complete. You need 3 of these. This is a patient care report. We're going to go over this before you start rotating, but at the very top, it's just general patient information. Do not obtain the patient's full name. I don't want to see that. That's a HIPAA violation. You're not obtaining any signatures, no insurance information, nothing like that. Just age, gender, weight, chief complaint, and we're going to go over the rest of this in class. But when I read this, you're going to submit this to me via email, and I read this to grade it. I'm looking at this narrative mainly, and you're painting with your words. You're creating a chronological story of how the patient arrived to you, what you found through the assessment, and what you performed as a treatment, and how did the patient react to that treatment. And after that, what was the disposition of the patient? Did the patient sign out AMA against medical advice? Did they get admitted to the floor? What happened? Who did you leave the patient with? Did you leave the patient with the nurse? Did you leave the patient alone? So all that stuff, we're going to talk about the narrative. You're going to learn that in documentation with Marty. Should be filled out. And your preceptor needs to sign down there. And this is the last sheet. It is your evaluation of the preceptor as well as the clinical site. I want to know if they're good and bad. I try to give these back to them as feedback. So go ahead and leave some comments at the bottom, and I'll return them to them. Your uniform, if you haven't obtained it already, is a gray student EMT polo, which can be obtained at the medical bookstore at UIC. So it's on the west side, not the east side, or the uniform store on Roosevelt across the street from Home Depot. If you need the address, you can email me or Marty. Blue or black medic style pants. When I say medic style pants, those can run you about $90 to $100. You can just go to Target or Walmart and obtain Dickies or Dockers style pants. As long as they're navy blue or black, it's good with us. What the pants can't be. They can't be jeans. They can't be leggings. They can't be scrubs. They need belt loops, okay? Solid black shoes. Most people opt for dress shoes. You can get medic-style boots or dress shoes, but those will also be very costly. I see a lot of students also wear gym shoes, as long as the gym shoes do not have any white emblems, so no white Adidas logos, Nike logos. They all have to be solid black. The soles of the shoes have to be solid black. The belt, you need a belt. You can have facial hair, it just has to be groomed. And there are no exceptions. We've had students be sent home from the clinical site for not adhering to their uniform policy. You have 1 week to submit all your paperwork. I want them via email. You can send it to vchan3@uic.edu. You'll get points docked if they're not turned in within 1 week. Please ensure that they are in PDF format, otherwise I won't be able to open it. Sometimes if you take a picture with your iPhone, it turns it into an HEIC, and I can't open that on my computer. Remember about the narrative. We talked about that. It's a story. It's a chronological story. After I read your narrative, I should be able to close my eyes and put myself in your shoes and experience everything that you experienced. So here's some special considerations. Your preceptors typically, for the majority, do not get compensated for sharing their time and wisdom with you. Like I said earlier, expect nothing from them. And because, to be frank, I've had students share that when they arrive to their clinicals and they get introduced to their preceptors, the preceptors roll their eyes and say, "Oh, I have a student today." Literally in front of the student, and it's very discouraging to hear that and to see that. Sadly, I don't have a control over who preceptors you, and I honestly don't want that control. But I assure you, there are more good preceptors than bad. You have to take it upon yourself to not take it personally, because some people, although they're in a position of precept, they just want to work their 8 hours and go home. That's how it is for some people. And then there are others that are natural teachers, and they want to share what they've picked up along the way and their experiences with incoming, new hires or students, because one day you might be their coworkers, right? And so be grateful for the ones that go out of their way to show you around, show you interesting things, ask you questions. Those are the good preceptors, okay? You can have more than one preceptor. And if you're writing at a local fire department and you're not familiar with fire department culture, typical firefighter shift and medic shift or fire department schedule is you work for 24 hours and you're off for 48 hours. So you work a day and you're off for 2 days. So you're at the fire department every 3 days, okay? That becomes their second home. And we are creatures of habit. We are very specific and particular about where we sit and where we lay and what we do. If you see someone doing chores, whether that's cleaning the ambulance, washing the ambulance, doing dishes, even cooking the food, setting the table, help out. Be the last person to sit, okay, essentially. And then watch where you sit. It's kind of silly, but watch where you sit. People have specific seats, right? So watch where you sit, be the last one to sit, things like that. But other than that, both Marty and I can attest to this. Some of our favorite times and experiences within emergency medicine are at the fire department. Okay. And then lastly, please take a break within your 8-hour shift. Doesn't happen too often, but here and there, we hear that students faint and they pass out during their shift. And it's not always due to lack of eating or not taking a break. Sometimes they just see, an amount of blood and they're like, oh, wow. And then they pass out and they become a patient. Good thing they're in the ER. But you can bring food. You can bring something to eat or drink. At least take a break during 8-hour shift and collect yourself, all right? Let's talk about interfacility transport versus municipality. So when you call 911, wherever you are, the local fire department is going to come to you when you call 911. And typically with 911, that ambulance has to take you to the closest hospital, all right? So if you're in Chicago, we're blessed with many hospitals in this area. And private ambulances, they perform mostly interfacility transports, meaning they will take a patient from their home to a doctor's appointment and maybe take them back home after that. They'll go to dialysis treatments. They'll do hospital discharges back to a home or nursing home. And every year or several years, ambulance companies, they bid for contracts with nursing homes and hospitals and dialysis centers. And after they win that bid, they have that contract, and that facility will call this private ambulance company anytime they need to transport a patient. Not every hospital is made the same. Let's say I was shot and my buddy transported me to the closest hospital, but that closest hospital did not have surgical services and what you'll come to know as trauma center. And so after that hospital stabilizes me, they're going to have to transport me to a hospital that has surgical services. And so they're going to have to call a private ambulance company to transport me. So I hope that clarifies that a little. And that being said, I don't want you to go to your private ambulance company expecting to hear lights and sirens for every call, because that's not the case. But that being said, private ambulances do make house calls here and there, because sometimes that patient doesn't want to go to the closest hospital, and so they'll obtain a phone number for a private ambulance, and then that private ambulance, as long as the patient is not dying, can transport to the hospital of their choice. Right? It's a little fun fact there. So that being said, bring something to do. The average call volume on a private ambulance shift, let's say 8 hours, maybe 3 to 5 calls within 8 hours. So the back of the ambulance is going to be your office for the day. So you can bring something to do, bring something to read, keep yourself occupied. But on the flip side, at the hospital, don't be found sitting in a break room with your book unless it's your break, because if you're sitting there reading, no one's going to come and disturb you. Okay. That being said, on both types of ambulances, the majority of the calls are not life or death. When I was a fresh medic and a fresh EMT, and you're going to a call, I got tunnel vision, and I got let's say a patient who was experiencing respiratory distress, and I'm just imagining this person is huffing and puffing for their life and will soon pass out, and we're going to need to perform CPR, and it's not always like that. It's rarely like that. So you need to build a good foundation. You need to be a good EMTB or an EMT basic prior to being a good EMTP or EMT paramedic. Okay. Let's see. More special considerations. So keep in mind that we do need 3 full PCRs. So that being said, as you arrive, you can do a lap. You should get a tour of the ER, and you should identify 3 patients that you think you can write full patient care reports on, and then stick with those patients. Check in on those patients so you collect more information so you can have full patient care reports. Okay. As another reminder, you should never be on a computer at the hospital, and all your information should be coming from either the patient or the preceptor. By the last day of class, or whenever you finish your clinicals, we need 2 reflection papers. One to reflect on your hospital experience between both Northwestern and UIC, and one reflecting on your ride-along experience. And I want you to reflect on your expectations going into these experiences. What was it like being there? Differences between UIC Northwestern, differences between the ambulance ride-alongs that you did, and then what you hope to accomplish after obtaining your EMT license. Where do you see yourself working with your EMT license? These papers are a page and a half, double spaced. We're not gonna be grading on grammar or anything like that, but it should be readable. And email them. I don't want anything handed in person. I want you to email them to the same email, vchan3@uic.edu. Okay. Drop any questions you have. You can email questions to me in the comments below. But that's all I had, guys. This is typically one of the favorite parts of the class for the students, being able to get a peek behind life as a healthcare provider. It's a privilege being on that side. I don't know if any of you have been a patient within the ER, but it's a privilege to be on the other side, being the ones to assess and ask the questions, and to see and witness and help out patients that are going through what could be the worst, experience of their life. Okay, so I hope that helps. If you have any questions, feel free to email me or Marty. But I'll see you in class or see you in the next video.